Good afternoon. My name is Agina Kason Rogers, and I am the Supervisory Park Ranger at Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site. And I welcome you to the second installment of our program today, The Speeches of Maggie Lena Walker, Dramatic Readings. We hope through this series that you will be able to get a sample of Mrs. Walker in full as she, through her orations, was meant to be heard. Maggie Walker was a popular speaker. Whenever she would go to a city or a town, wherever she went, when people heard that she was coming to speak, they would crowd the churches or crowd the lecture hall or pack the city auditorium just to hear her speak. Unfortunately, there are no surviving recordings of Maggie Walker's speeches or Maggie Walker speaking that we know of. However, there are transcripts and transcriptions of her speeches, and over the years, various talented voice actors have brought Mrs. Walker's words to life, at least a sample of them. For example, Irma Askew was featured in our original film that we would show here at the Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site. And you also had the words of Marie Goodman Hunter, whose orations you can hear on our website. Most recently, Daphne Maxwell Reid brought the voice of Maggie Walker to life in our current film, Carry On. But as I mentioned, these are just samples, just a teaser of the power of Maggie Walker's words. So we hope through these series of unabridged presentations that you will be able to hear her speeches as they were meant to be experienced, spoken aloud, in full. Through hearing her words in full, we hope that you will be moved as her audience had been moved in the past. Be moved to take action in the present. Now, our presentation today is a speech called Race Unity. It was a collection of speeches that were typed up and bound in a volume, perhaps typed by the clerks of the office force in the St. Luke Hall for the Independent Order of St. Luke, and possibly bound in the printing office of the St. Luke Press. You can think of this bound volume as perhaps Maggie Walker's greatest hits. And one of the favorites in that bound volume is Race Unity. Now, from the context of the speech, though it was printed and bound in 1909, when you hear it, there are some clues that show that it possibly was delivered before that time. Sometime after the St. Luke newspaper, the St. Luke Herald, was established, a little after the bank started in 1903, but before the St. Luke Emporium, the department store that they ran, opened. So I now present to you Race Unity. We are told that out of one blood, God made all nations that dwell upon the face of the earth. And man has taken God's handiwork and divided the same into 5 families: the black, white, yellow, brown, and the red. And I have named them in the regular order of their importance. A race is simply a family, nothing more, only a large family in contradistinction from a family small enough to live in an ordinary house. The race takes up more ground and more houses, while family is generally found under one roof. Now, instead of talking about race unity, wherein you immediately begin to think of the millions of individuals who comprise a race, I am simply going to talk about a family of folks of ordinary size, living together in a community, along with the other families or races. Thus, we are prepared to think about family unity or a united family. Father, mother, and children, boys and girls. One naturally thinks of a family as united. And why? Simply because they are of the same flesh and blood, born and reared together. Of the same flesh and blood, they are really the same people, made of the same material, with the same father and mother. It would be strange indeed if they did not resemble one another. It would be strange if the boys and girls, mother and father, were not willing to sacrifice for one another and to do all within their power for each other's uplift. But in this family, before they can feel that interest in one another, before John is ready and willing to say, "Father, whip me, I'll take sister's whipping," before the mother says to the husband, "Henry, you can buy shoes for Mary, I can wait," and before the father is willing to continue in his suit already well worn in order that James may put on a new suit, there must be an element, a feeling, an invisible something which binds and ties the family together as a unit. And that invisible something is love. Without family love, there can be no family unity, no united family. Without love, born into them with the coming of their breath, increasing with the strength and vitality which they draw from their mother's breast, there can be no family in the full sense of what the word family means. That the different members of the family should love one another is natural. We look for it, we expect it, and if we do not find it, we are shocked and exclaim, "What an unnatural family! They don't care for one another." And we turn away in very disgust at the unnatural and unusual sight. Without appreciation, respect, and love, there can be no unity. One might as well try and erect a wall without cement, or to build a frame house without nails. In fact, we believe it is easier to do either of these two than to have family unity without love. Family love, family pride is absolutely necessary, or else there can be no family development. Without the pride of the family will break up. Father will desert mother, or mother will run off. Children will scatter and wander away, and the family, as such, will pull apart, dividing its energies and becoming swallowed up in the surrounding families, only to become their menials and hirelings. We are told that in each family there is a skeleton. But the family does not parade its skeleton, neither do the members of a loving, well-regulated family spend time in going from house to house, from place to place, parading and exposing the weaknesses and shortcomings of their own family. They do not spend their time in publishing long newspaper articles filled with venom and criticism of their own family. They do not spend their time in brilliant speeches and lectures, producing epigrams, discreditable to their own brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers. They do not meet in great conferences and conventions held with open doors, where are men and women of nearby families, and lay upon the dissecting tables their own brothers and sisters, and with the knife cut, dissect, and lay bare the deformities of their own kith and kin, while with book and pen in hand, members of other families jot down the sayings and conclusions for future reference. No, no, no loving, well-regulated, sensible family could ever be guilty of a course so unreasonable, so suicidal to family development and unity. A man or woman may be depraved and immoral, but when he so far forgets himself as to parade his own shortcomings, we pass the poor fool by with disgust and shun him or her as one would a pest house. One of the things which prevents Negro family unity is the peculiar kind of religion which we have had administered unto us, and which, in our ignorance, we unconsciously open our mouths and swallow. The Negro family has a religion which was created for the Negro by the white men at Jamestown, Virginia, in 1619, and he has not, as yet, been able to rid himself of the same. A religion of superstition, ignorance, myths, signs, sounds, moans, groans, dreams, and visions. A religion manufactured to suit the slave, to appease his internal disquiet, a kind of plaster to his aching heart, as devoid of sense as it was of piety, purity, and Christianity. A religion which relieved his pent-up, surcharged body, a longing, a yearning, a supine waiting for the miraculous, a faith without works, a religion devoid of real love, a religion which taught endurance without murmuring, hope without resistance, waiting without watching. A religion by far worse than the paganism which the slave brought from Africa, in that it utterly destroyed his manhood and took from him every particle of trust and confidence in his own flesh and blood, and rooted and grew up in him unlimited faith and worship in those who despoiled him. And from this condition of affairs, running through the long, dreary years of slavery, rapine, incest, and debauchery, has evolved a religion peculiar to the Negro family. But is it all surprising that the Negro learned to look upon his religion? He had neither house, shelter, or home. His clothes, his body, his life belonged to his master. He existed for himself and to himself only as a spirit. And from this condition, with nothing earthly upon which to think or entwine his affection and ground his interest, is it strange that he learned to chant, "You may have all this world, give me Jesus"? Thus, for nearly 300 years, we have been swallowing a religion that has but one side, the so-called spiritual that has looked but one way, up towards heaven and things heavenly, until the other families of the earth have taken from under us the very earth upon which we stand. The time to begin to correct this idea of religion that God requires, or that Christ taught, the giving up of earthly possessions, is now. The place here in this church tonight. And the teaching should be by deed, not mere words, but actual participation in the effort we are making to bring into our religion love, faith, trust, confidence, which creates a real, actual, living family unity. For we say, as he said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things should be added unto you. What things? What we shall eat, what we shall drink, and wherewithal we shall be clothed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have been dealing with the theoretical family unit. Suppose we drop theory and deal absolutely with facts and conditions of race unity existing tonight in our immediate vicinity. In round numbers, we are surrounded by 50,000 of our own flesh and blood. We may also say here we find a large number of educated, refined, cultured, well-to-do Negroes. What an ideal field of race unity. Fitted by education and means, we should stand in the forefront, away in the lead in race enterprise of every sort. But is such the case? Why are not these splendid opportunities for race unity utilized? Whose fault is it? On whom does rest the blame? Is the pulpit doing its duty? Has the school teacher done her duty? If we are to have race unity, it must be largely the work of the schoolhouse and the church. This significant church edifice here tells more loudly than any words we ever will be able to pen or utter how powerful is the influence of the pulpit. I am told that all the colored children of this city are taught by colored teachers. What a sentiment for permanent race unities these can plant, nourish, and rear in the minds of our boys and girls, our young men and women. But the thing which discourages most is the utter lack of race unity among the Negroes who are themselves educated, the best in the professional. It is sad yet true that the educated and well-to-do Negroes have but little in common with the others of his race, prefers to be as little identified with them and their concerns as he possibly can. The women and men who write beautiful essays and make grand speeches generally practice about as little what they can preach as the doctor takes the medicine which he prescribes. The laboring men and women, those digging in the streets, sweating over the wash tub and ironing board, those who toil by manual labor, make their bread. These are the ones who support professional Negroes and keep alive whatever there is amongst us, which we call race enterprise. My dear friends, I am here tonight to help you to see the signs of the times and then go down on my knees and beg of you to be guided by the lamp of experience. The Negro is being oppressed and elbowed and pushed aside and driven out as he never was before. We as Negroes are losing everything. We are losing everywhere. But God intends we shall unite. Before I take my seat, my friends, I want to appeal to you to join the ranks of our organization, the Independent Order of St. Luke, which believes in prayer, which believes in the cross, for the Negro certainly has never been without his, but has still greater faith in the prayer which has $1 to enforce the petition of the prayer which it makes, hand to contend for it, and feet to run the support of the same. We are making the effort of our lives in this organization founded by a Negro woman, Miss Prout of Baltimore, to band the Negro women of this country together for the purpose of not only administering to the sick and burying the dead, but for the purpose of developing a series of dry goods and millinery stores. We are perfectly aware of the great undertaking this is. But when we realize that our family, the Negro race, is spending more than $250,000 every week in these Twin Cities, and spending that money with a family which will not recognize us as citizens, which will not employ our fathers or our mothers, which will not give our sisters or brothers the slightest chance to be benefited by this stream of living water, which we continually furnish daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and that without ceasing. We are going to see if we can try and turn the course of that almighty stream of dollar and see if we can till our own barren lands, feed our own hungry, clothe our own naked, so that we can tell Jesus, Lord, we did it all in thy name. We are aware of what is behind us. An adult membership of 11,000 financial members, 10,000 children, an organization that is paying weekly sick claims from $1.50 to $4 per week, and that has paid $53,140 to the families of deceased members in 5 years. An organization with a printing plant, a home office, a growing bank. We are going to try to give to the world a practical race unity, not read about but seen, not theoretical but actual, walls of brick roofed in, sheltering our own family. We need not wait for God to come down in visible form, or for him to exert any other than human agencies to awake us from our sloth. Time was when God winked at ignorance, but that time has passed. God is no respecter of persons. God will not and does not care one whit more for the Negro than he does for the Italian, the Swede, or the Jew. God has promised but one thing. I will help, he says, and that help is something that only comes when we are doing, striving, and making the best effort of which our brains and hands are capable. We can do. We will do. We are going to do now. The pillar of cloud which has hung over us all these years is tonight a pillar of fire, bidding us arise, put our dollars together, and begin a work destined to grow until our mothers, daughters, and sisters shall find themselves in a store as large as any white store. a store in which decent treatment can be accorded the Negroes, a store by which we can feed and clothe our women and men, and give them a chance to keep an account in the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, and lay up a competence for the dark and rainy days which come in every life and every home. We have the money, the brains, the capability. Let us arise and show to the men and women of our race, nay, to the whole world, that we see the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night, and that we are marching under God's guidance towards race unity.